Bear with me here. I'm trying to get this set up. I had to go to my backup computer because my other one just decided to update, and now it doesn't work. So won't connect to the internet at all. Gotta love that. So sorry for the delay, everybody. All right. So it's like we got some questions in there. I'll give people a minute to file into the chat room here. It's like we got a few questions in there to start. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll start here with Brant Ed. Says, I was going through the stable fluid spine exercise and a little confused on best weight distribution using Clay's rule for nose ahead of the ball and belt buckle behind. I was hitting iron shots and noticed that my iron shots were going shorter than normal, straight but less distance. Can you talk about the leaning back spine setup to the ball and where my weight should be distributed with gap wedge to up to 5 iron? I'm missing something here unless it takes a ton of time to change this effectively. So your weight shift or your weight distribution it's going to be fairly equal at address. I'm going to do my best to be able to kind of demonstrate some of this stuff, but basically it's going to be fairly equal at address. So if I have a little bit of tilt this way, my weight distribution in my feet's going to be fairly equal, right? So when I tilt, I'm not doing this, right, where I'm on my back foot, right? My hips go forward a little bit and my nose goes back a little bit. So the overall weight distribution is going to stay mostly the same. I'm going to be like this, right? So that's where I want to be. And then when I start my backswing, I'm going to shift to my trail side a little bit. Then as I'm getting up to the top, I'm going to be moving into my lead side. You can see I'm still have my body angled away as I get up to the top. I'm going to move into my lead side, and then I'm going to push into the ground. I'm going to keep my nose behind the ball. So what I don't want to do is stay on my back foot and go like this. I would guess you're probably doing some version of that because you're probably hitting it a little bit shorter because you're not making very good contact with the ball. You're probably hitting a little bit behind the ball. So you want to make sure that you're shifting forward into your lead foot. Your hips are moving forward, right? So that way you're still keeping your nose kind of behind the ball, but your hips are moving forward. So that way you can hit down and through the ball on the ground. So that's what I'd be trying to do with those. All right, so let's go back to the chat here, see if we got more questions. I know there was a few more that came in. So TJ says, is the pulling the arrow from the quiver drill downswing? Hold on. Is the pulling the arrow from the quiver drill a downswing hand path drill? Seems it guards against coming over the top. Not really. It's more to get the. So what we want to understand is that go back to the other screen here. What we want to understand is that this club wants to line up with the direction that I'm pulling it, right? So what the quiver, the arrow out of the quiver drill is, it's a way to get to feel your hands kind of moving away from you to start the downswing, right? That's going to help you to create lag. It's going to help this club to lag behind. If I pull my hands in, right, see what the club wants to do? It wants to cast out. So it's not necessarily an over-the-top drill. It's more of a drill to help you to create lag in the downswing. So to keep you from pulling your hands in. Now, if that indirectly helps you to not come over the top, then great. But it's not. If someone's coming over the top, I wouldn't have them do the quiver drill. I would have somebody do the arrow out of the quiver drill if they were starting their downswing by kind of pulling their hands in and they're casting the club. That's really the intention of the drill. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's keep going. All right, so I think that was just a repeat. Oh, and just to go back to your question as far as gap wedge to up to 5 iron, it's no different. Your weight shift's going to be the same. If anything, for like wedges where it's a gauged swing, it's not a full swing. you could favor your lead side, kind of stay on your lead side, because the idea of a weight shift is to create power, and if we're not taking a full swing, we're not going full power, right? So you can kind of favor your lead side throughout those swings, and that could help you to make more consistent contact. But if it's a full swing, the weight distribution and all that's going to be the same. All right. So Barry B says, Q, can you talk through a drill or two that can be used to better control the bottom of the club path? Yeah. So one of my favorite drills would be the chair drill. So a lot of this just depends on why you're having trouble controlling it. But one of my favorite drills is this chair drill, because it's a big reason why I see a lot of people struggling with this. So when I see people struggling with, controlling the bottom of their swing, usually what's happening is they're not getting to their lead side enough. They're staying too much on their trail side. So their back swings may look like this, where they kind of sway their hips this way. And at the top of the swing, almost all of their weight is on their back foot, right? So a drill that I like to use to correct this is the chair drill. And what you do, and you don't have to use a chair. I like a chair. I think it's about perfect for this because it's the right height. It's heavy enough that you're going to be able to feel it, but it's not so heavy that it pushes you over, right? It provides some resistance that you can feel. So, but you can use your bag, right? I would just use something that would be out of the way of your swing, but it's still going to be on your hip. I've seen some people use an alignment stick in the ground. You could try using that. But for me, it's just not rigid enough. I don't really feel it there whenever I'm working on stuff. I've done drills, where I put the alignment stick in the ground and try to, keep my body from touching it. But whenever I do it, I'll look at it on video and my body's clearly touching it and I didn't even feel it. So it's just not rigid enough for me. You may be able to feel it. I can't. So that's why I like using stuff like this, like a chair, because I can feel that when I hit it. So chair, something like this. They also have like the bag stands at driving ranges. A lot of times that can be used for this. But basically what we're going to do for this drill is to start the backswing, you're going to nudge it a little bit, just a little nudge. And that's just you moving pressure into your trail foot to start the swing. And then as you get up to the top, you're actually going to create a little bit of a gap here between your hip. And it's going to be about a hand width, right? So I'm going to want to be able to just snugly fit my hand between my hip and the chair at the top of the swing, right? So that would look like this. And then when I start my downswing, I'm going to move away from that chair as I come down to the ball. And that's going to help you to get that bottom of the swing more in front. So that's one that I really like, but that may not be, something that you struggle with specifically, but it's just something that I see that's very common. The other one that I really like is the step drill. So the step drill is where we start with our feet together, right? We have our feet close together. We start the club going back, and then we get our weight shift moving forward. Again, a big reason why a lot of people struggle with getting the bottom of the swing in front of the ball is because of their weight shift. It's because they're shifting their weight way too late or not at all, right? They're either going up to the top of the swing and then starting the weight shift from there, or what they're doing is they're going up to the top of the swing and they don't shift their weight at all, right? What we need to be doing is we need to be kind of shifting our weight to our lead side in the last part of the backswing. And that chair drill helps you with that. And this step drill also helps you with that. Now, some people may be doing the chair drill perfectly, but not really shifting their weight, continuing to shift their weight in the downswing. So I think both of these together can work really well. So again, we start with our feet together, club in front, shift the weight to the trail side, get the club going back. And then as the club's going back, as the hands clear the hips, we're going to start stepping forward. And then once my foot hits the ground, I'm going to start my downswing. I'm going to start my downward move to the ball. And that's going to allow you to get that ground contact more in front. If you're someone who really struggles with your ground contact, the divot board would be something I would highly recommend. You just place it on the ground and you place the ball where this yellow dot is, and then it shows you exactly where you hit the ground. So if you're someone who practices on mats a lot and hits a lot of fat shots, well, when you practice on mats, it kind of gives you this false sense of accomplishment almost, because you could hit 2, 3 inches, 4 inches behind the ball on every single shot, and it will feel so good off of that mat. It'll feel pure. You'll hit the ball, it'll go straight. It won't, you won't lose any distance, or it won't really be noticeable. But then you got on the course and you chunk and thin everything, right? And then you feel like, man, I hit it great on the range, but terrible on the course. When the reality is that you really hit it terrible on the range. It's just that you're hitting off of mats, and the club's not going to dig into the mat. It's just going to slide on the mat. So if you use something like this, put it next to the mat or on the mat or whatever you want to do, it gives you instant feedback. Right away, you hit a shot and maybe it felt great. You look at it, it's flying through the air. Then you look down and maybe it looks like that. It's like, oh no, that would have been bad, out on the course. So you're able to correct that right away. So highly recommend this. I think they're over $100 or something like that. I can't remember exactly how much they are. They aren't the cheapest thing, so I understand if you don't want to get one. So things you can do as well is put a towel on the mat, about a club head width behind the ball. Just put it flat on the mat, and if you hit the towel, you know that you're hitting the ground before the ball. I can put the link to the divot board if you want to pick that up. Let me find that real quick. So I'll put the link in the chat for the divot board. The link has the video where Clay reviews the divot board, and it also has the link where you can go purchase one. But a full disclosure, we do get a commission if you buy it from our link, which we appreciate. It helps us make great videos for y'all. But yeah, I would definitely recommend one. They're pretty handy. All right, let's keep going. So LL says, I'm fighting getting my driver started down on plane and inside. I don't generally have the issue with my irons, hybrids, or fairway woods. What would you suggest to fix this? So this is pretty common. It's pretty common to come over the top with your driver, but not have that issue with your irons. The reason is because of the ball position. So when the ball position is more forward in the stance, we're going to tend to want to come down more steeply in order to hit it, right? So if I get out my hula hoop here. So for an iron, right, generally the ball position is going to be closer to the middle, maybe a little bit forward of the middle of the stance, right? So you think of my ball position being right here, right, where this tape is. So if this is my swing plane with my iron, right, and I use the exact same swing plane for a driver where my ball position is going to be more up here, well, look what happens. My club comes down, turns the corner at where I would hit my iron, and then it works to the left when it gets to the ball, right? So that's going to be kind of an over-the-top kind of swing, right? So we actually need to shallow out the club more, right, with our driver or with any club that we're moving the ball position more forward. We need to shallow out the club more with those clubs because the ball position is forward. Now, we don't want to put the ball in the back of our stance or in the middle of our stance with a driver, because then you'll hit it too low. You'll chop down on it. It won't go very far. We want it forward in the stance so that way we can hit up on it. So we just need to shallow it out more. So what I'd recommend doing is just work through the 20-minute shallowing fix, but work through it with your driver. That's what I would recommend doing. So to get to that course, click the instruction tab, then click the 20-minute shallowing fix course. And I know Clay does it with an iron, but you need to do it with your driver because it doesn't sound like you need to do it with your iron. So do it with your driver, and you'll start getting that club to work from the inside. He walks you through a progression of exactly how to do it. That's what I'd recommend doing. All right, so David S. says, I noticed when I was hitting my irons, I'd line up with the ball square in the center of the club face and hit the ball slightly off the toe of the club. I move my stance so that when I'm lining up my shot, the ball is slightly inside toward the heel. When I swing, I can tell that I now hit the ball squarely off the club face. My shot is improved and I have more power and distance as a result. Is this a reasonable solution? My dad noticed me lining up with the ball inside and asked me about it. It's usually, if it works, it works. But a lot of times what ends up happening is we end up adapting. So it's usually a kind of a quick solution, but it's not usually a long-term solution. So this may or may not happen. You may have made the adjustment and now you hit it in the center of the face all the time moving forward. If you do, then great. But that's usually not what happens. Maybe you start hitting a few shots in the middle of the face, and maybe the rest of the round you hit it in the middle of the face. But what's going to tend to happen is we're going to tend to adapt, and you're going to start hitting the ball on the toe again, and you can't just keep standing closer and closer and closer and closer to the ball. At some point, you're just going to be standing way too close and you can't hit it, right? So, what I would recommend doing in that situation is I would adjust your intent, right? So, if your intent is to hit the ball in the middle of the face, but what's actually happening is you're hitting it off the toe, then I would change your intent to hitting it off the heel. And what will likely happen is you'll hit the ball more in the center of the face. And you just keep doing that until you actually start hitting the ball on the heel. And then at that point, you can ease off of it and you can start, if you start hitting a few in a row that are off the center of the, or off the heel, excuse me, when you're trying to hit the ball on the heel, you've essentially calibrated yourself and you can go back to hitting it in the center of the face. That's more of a solution that's going to be more long term. All right, let's keep going. So Rick G says, at the setup, go over the optimal angle between club and forearms. Between club and forearms. There isn't necessarily an optimal angle. There, you can stand closer to it or farther away from it. Also, it's going to depend on the club. Longer clubs are going to have more of a flatter angle, whereas shorter clubs are going to have more of a smaller angle. But generally speaking, I know my head's cut off a little bit. Sorry, but generally speaking, basically what we want to do is we want to let our arms kind of hang straight down from our shoulders, right? And that's going to put our hands roughly 5-6 inches in front of our legs. And when the club's on the ground, right, that's the angle, right? So there's no optimal angle. That's just, you just want to make sure that you're in a relaxed position. Now, there are players that, like a John Rahm. John Rahm's kind of like this. He's going to have a smaller angle. Hits the ball pretty well, right? Bryson, he's more like this, right? Hits the ball pretty well. So it's not that you can't be a little bit on either end of the spectrum either. You just have to kind of find what works best for you. But generally speaking, a good starting point would be just letting those arms hang straight down, and then you can adjust from there. All right, so Steve G says, I'm doing the masterclass and working on the path, face, target, line drills, right-hand golfer to hit a draw, and finding that in my practice, I can get my club to travel on the path well, but when taking a full swing, I'm over-rotating a bit and the path changes, so that pathway coming through is more to the left. Where do I want my club head to be at the furthest point of the release in front of me? The furthest point. I wouldn't go about it thinking that way. I would just adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want. If you're swinging too much to the left and you need to swing to the right, swing as much as you need to out to the right. And I would really exaggerate swinging out to the right. Maybe put an obstacle in your way, like a box or something like that. All right. So I got an old Amazon box here, and if I'm struggling with getting my path to work too much to the left, right? If I'm trying to hit a draw and I'm a right-handed golfer and my path is working out to in, right? I'm not going to be able to, I would be able to draw it, but I wouldn't be able to draw it onto the target. If I want to draw it onto the target, and let's say this alignment stick represents the target line, right? If I want to draw it onto this, onto the target that would be on this target line, I can't swing outside that box because if I draw it, it's just going to start left and keep going left. I would be able to fade it, but if I want to draw it, I need this club to work from inside the stick to outside the stick. So putting this box right here behind my ball right, and a little bit to the outside of my ball is going to force that path to work from the inside. So that way, if I hit the box, I know I'm coming down steeply. So that's what I would work on. I'd put an obstacle there, and I'd work on getting this path. And if you're really struggling with a draw, then I would really exaggerate it and get the ball to hook, and then just tone it down. That'd be the easiest thing to do. All right, let's keep going. So Barry B says, thank you for the tips and the link. No problem, Barry. Glad to help. So Dave K says, please tell me tips to help cure early extension and flipping, especially with irons. It really just depends on the root cause. But what I would recommend doing, there's really there's two main things that I see. I can tell you the two main things, but without seeing your swing, unfortunately, there's no way for me to know for sure. But there's two main things that people struggle with typically when they have early extension and flipping. They're related to all of that. So one would be coming down steep, right? So coming down steep is when this club is like this to start the downswing, right? Well, if I want to get this club to shallow out, I'm going to have to early extend, right? There's nobody that gets their arms doing this and then suddenly gets the arms to do that, right? What's going to happen is you're going to come down steep like this, and then you're going to early extend. Now look what happens to the club. Now that club shallows out, and I can hit a functional shot, right? So most people early extend and or flip is a way to hit a functional shot, is a way to hit the ball toward the target. They're not usually doing it because they're trying not to. They're usually doing it because it leads to good shots. And if they didn't, they would hit terrible shots, right? So in order to fix that, we want to get that club shallowing out. Now you can see if I have it shallowed out, now I can stay in my posture, right? And that club's going to work down into a better position. So shallowing it out or coming down steep, that's typically the one of the main reasons. The other reason is the club face being open. So if I'm coming down and my club face is open, I'm going to need to do something to square it up. Again, most people flip the club as a means to hit a functional shot, right? Meaning a shot that goes in the direction that we're trying to hit it, right? So if I had this club face like this coming down, it's pointing to the sky, right? And then let's say I stayed in my posture and I really rotated, I got my hands in front at impact. Well, what's going to happen is that club face is just going to stay wide open. I'm going to hit the ball a mile to the right. And your brain knows that. So your brain hits the brakes and stands up out of your swing. So that way you can release the club, flip it, right? So that way you can flip the club to square it up, right? So if I have this face open and then I rotate, stay in my posture, face is going to stay open. If I have this face open and then I stall and stand up and flip my hands, that squares up the face. So that allows you to hit a ball that goes toward the target. Now, is it the way that the best players do it? No, it's not. It's not the way the best players, it's not the most optimal way. But I'd much rather have someone that stands up out of their posture and flips it and squares up the face and gets the club to shallow out late and hits functional shots than to have the person that comes down steep, open face, but then does the pro moves where they stay in their posture, because that golfer is going to hit really, really bad shots. So like I said, you're usually doing these things as a way to hit a good golf shot. So what I'd recommend doing if you want to get rid of your early extension and your flipping, the first thing that I would do, or the first thing that I would look at to try to improve that, would be working through the 20-minute shallowing fix course, because that addresses both of those things. It addresses the club face being open, and it addresses the club being steep. It addresses both of those. Those are basically the things that you work on in there. Now, it doesn't mean just because you work through the shallowing fix that it's automatically going to fix those things, but that would most likely be the first step that's going to help you to get there. Outside of that, if you want somebody to be able to pinpoint, hey, look at your swing, like this, and this, or it's just this is kind of the root cause as to what's going on, and here's what you need to do, then I'd recommend signing up for our online lesson program. I actually do have a couple of spots open, or at least I did before we started here. So if you're interested, there should be a link above the video where you can sign up. Just click that link, you can sign up, and then we can look at, okay, I can look at your swing belt. Okay, here's what's going on. Here's what you need to do. to get rid of your flipping or early extension or whatever's going on. But outside of that, what I would recommend is the 20-minute shallowing fix for sure. To get to the 20-minute shallowing fix, you just click the instruction tab. Then you can click the 20-minute shallowing fix from there. All right. Should have some more questions in here. All right. So Norman S says, can I get more distance with different softer balls depending on swing speed? Not really. All the balls mostly go the same distance. If you get different distances with different balls, it's going to be pretty minimal. It's most likely not even going to be noticeable. So all the balls pretty much go the same distance. There's not really much difference in that. They tested, they've done a huge lab testing of all the golf balls and showed that they pretty much go the same distance. There's not a big difference in the distances with the balls. What's the big difference is the spin. That's typically when you're buying golf balls, that's really the main thing that you're looking at. Do you want a ball that spins or do you want a ball that doesn't spin very much? So I would say if you want a ball that is soft around the greens, feels soft, has spin around the greens, you're going to want basically pretty much any ball that a tour player uses. Would be so a Pro V1, TaylorMade TP5. There's a lot of golf balls that tour players use. Any of those golf balls are going to be balls that that get plenty of distance, because obviously that's really important. Especially at the highest level, but that have that spin. You can get that spin around the greens. The problem with those kinds of golf balls is they tend to be pretty expensive. So there are alternatives out there for golf balls that are tour caliber golf balls, but that you can get for cheap. So one that I would recommend that I like and that I play myself is Snell balls, MTB Black. I really like these. Again, these were included in that testing. They spun, when you compared them to like the Pro V1, and which I think that's a great golf ball. TaylorMade TP5, that's a great golf ball. There's a lot of great golf balls out there. But this one's like $30 some a dozen, whereas those ones are like $50 to $60 a dozen typically. So the reason why Snell, and full disclosure, Snell sends us golf balls, to try, and we use them in a video. So I paid for my own Snell golf balls before as well, but they have sent us golf balls. So if you want to say that I'm biased, that's fair. But I use them. Clay's used them. I think they're great golf balls. They're just as good as the ones out there. Reason why they're able to charge a cheaper price is because they don't pay any pros to use them. They don't advertise. They don't do any retail. They're direct to consumer. So you can get them on Amazon or you can get them on snellgolf.com. So yeah, check them out. And I think they have discounts if you, or even more of a discount if you buy a certain amount, a dozen. I think if you buy 5 dozen, you might get 1 dozen free or something like that. I don't know if they still do that, but I think they used to do that, a deal like that. So yeah, check them out. They're a great golf ball. But if you don't want spin, if that's something that's not really important to you, or you don't even really notice the difference between, Top Flight or a Pinnacle and a Pro V1, then it doesn't make any sense for you to pay for the spin if you don't really notice it or care about it. So buying the $20 a dozen, the $30 a dozen golf balls that, would be 100% fine. Also, if you have a Costco membership, there's the Kirkland Signature brand golf balls. I think it's like 30 golf balls for $20, or I can't remember how much it is, but that's a decent golf ball. It's not quite as spinny. You're not going to get quite as much spin on it as you are like a Pro V1, but it's a good, like, in between, like, hard cover ball. It's like a medium soft cover ball, but basically they all go the same distance. So if you're looking for a distance ball, you just buy the ball that has the spin that you want. But they're all going to go mostly the same. All right. So LL says, you just covered setup and path to hit a draw. How about to hit a fade? Have a little trouble hitting a fade. So draw is just the opposite of a fade, or and vice versa. So in order to hit a fade, let me angle this down again. All right. So if this is my target line, right, I need my club path to be working out to in relative to this target line. And then I need to have my face open to that path, but close to the target. So what that means is, let's say that my path is 4 degrees out to in. So my path works 4 degrees in that direction. If I want to hit a fade with that path, I need my club face to be 2 degrees closed of the target. So that way the ball can start to the left of the target. And I need it to be 2 degrees open to my path. That's going to produce a shot that starts a little bit to the left and fades back toward the right. If I want to hit an even bigger fade, right, I need my ball to start even more to the left, right, if I want it to fade onto the target. So maybe my face would be 6 degrees closed to the path. Well, I would need a 12 degree, 6 degrees closed to the target. I would need a 12 degree out to in path to accommodate that, right? So when I hit a fade, because I have a draw bias swing, which means that I work the club from the inside. I like to keep that the same when I hit a fade. So what I'll do is I'll aim my body to the left. I'm still going to be shallowing out the club and swinging it inside relative to my body, but because I've turned my body left of the target, that gets my path working left of the target. The ball and the target don't care about how my body's set up. It only cares about how this club works through. Now, if you have a fade bias swing, if you're someone who comes down a little bit steep, you may already be swinging out to in, right, and creating that path. But personally, I don't come down steep, so I'm going to aim my body to the left and shallow it out, and I'm going to hold that face open through contact because generally when I hit a draw, I'm going to swing from the inside. So I'm going to set up square. My club's going to work from the inside. I'm going to let that club face kind of naturally want to roll over through impact to get that face a little bit close to my path, and that's going to produce a draw. But if I want to hit a fade, I'll basically feel like I'm holding that face toward the target, so that way it gets that face open to my path. So there's lots of ways to do it, but that's the way that I do it. But like I said, if you're someone who struggles to get the club face closed, then that's probably not going to help you. You probably can feel like you're coming through naturally. So a lot of it just depends on what are your biases in your swing. And that would be how you would hit certain shots. All right, let's keep it going. Second here. Yeah. Slap my fridge. Sometimes it starts buzzing. I don't know if you can hear that, but it drives me nuts. Need to get it fixed. All right. So Jay Casey says need a drill to stop hitting the ball off the heel of the club. To be honest, you don't need a drill. You just need to hit it off the toe. Exaggerate hitting it off the toe. Change your intention to hitting the ball off the toe. Exaggerate as much as you need to. So let's say, because right now you're trying to hit it in the center, but you're hitting it here. So you need to try to hit it here. Change your intention to hitting it here. And then most likely what's going to happen is you're going to start hitting the ball in the center of the face. And then I would just keep doing that until you start hitting the ball off the toe. Then you can ease off of it. Now, some people have trouble doing that, because they're so focused on hitting in the center of the face, it's hard for them to hit it off the toe. So ways that you can do that you can kind of change this. So if you want like a drill, I would say. So there's a couple. Let's just go over a couple drills. So if you're struggling with toe strikes, you mentioned heel strikes, right? So if you're struggling with heel strikes, what you can do is you can set up like this, have an alignment stick, and then just take practice swings where you go up to the top and then you swing inside the alignment stick, right? So you're here and then you come down and you swing and you hit the ground inside the alignment stick. And then try to replicate that same feel with the ball. So that's one you could do. Another one you could do, if you have a box or you put a head cover down or something like that. If you're struggling with heel strikes, what you can do is you can have a box kind of next to your ball like this, right? And you have to hit this ball without hitting that box. If you were to hit it off the heel, you're going to smoke that box, right? So you're going to come in and you got to hit that ball off the toe, then you can tone it down. Another thing you can do is you can take a tee and put it in the ground about an inch inside the ball, right, toward you, set up to the ball, and then try to clip that tee out of the ground in the middle of the face, right? So those are a few drills that you can do to kind of help you through that. But most likely, if you just try to hit the ball off the toe, it will help, because you can't do any of this stuff on the course, right? So if you want something that you're more than likely going to be able to take to the course pretty quickly, that's what I'd recommend doing. So Norman S says, can you give me good drill to transfer my weight when using my driver? When I hit my irons, I transfer my weight correctly without thinking of it. Yeah, the step drill is the best drill to transfer your weight. You can do this with any club, to be honest, but you start with your feet together, right? Point the club in front, and you're not hitting a ball when you do this. This is just getting a feel for getting the proper weight shift. So here's the progression that I would work through, right? So driver, point the club in front. Again, you're not hitting a ball doing this. Pressure into the trail foot, throw it back, and then shift your weight forward, right? You're going to step forward as the club's going back. And I would start that step as soon as your hands kind of clear your hips. So you're here, swing your hands here, hands clear the hips. That's when I'm going to start my step. I'm going to time the pressure into my lead foot with the top of my swing. As soon as I get that foot down, I'm going to come all the way around into a full finish, right? When I see people do this drill and they have trouble with it, typically what's happening is, one, they're usually not getting their momentum going forward. So they'll do something like this, right? So see how I'm keeping my body over here? I'm not really shifting my weight. So you want to make sure that you're stepping forward. Get your body to shift forward, right? Another thing that they do is that the timing won't be correct. So basically they'll go like this. They'll start their arms down before they get their foot down. So they'll go, right? So we want to get that foot down and then we go, right? So that's what you want to feel. I would do, probably about 10 to 15 reps of that. Good reps, make sure you're doing it correctly. Then what I would do is I would go to your normal stance, right? Again, no ball just yet. Now try to replicate that same thing. So I'd have the club in front, shift it that way, get your body shifting forward, feel that pressure in your lead foot, and then start pushing the ground and come all the way around to a full finish. As you start getting better at that, 10 to 15 reps, again, I'd do that. Then I would add the golf ball and try to do the same thing. All right, let's keep going. Looks like we got another one here. BJ says, Q, do most golfers roll their right wrist over the left and the follow through is the best to try and do? All golfers do that. There's no golfers that keep their right hand under all the way through. Every golfer is going to have some. Now, some have more than others, but every golfer is going to have some amount of that, the right wrist, the trail arm coming over the left arm and the follow through. All right, we got about 10 minutes left here. We got any more questions? LL says, is that the Ore Diggers logo on your wall? No, it's the I went to South Dakota School of Mines and Technology, so it's grubby. It's the Hard Rockers logo. But yeah, I know there's a lot of schools that have a similar logo. So Dave K says, does it make sense to hold the putter face square at my target at the end of my putt? No, the putter is going to naturally kind of come around, right? So if we kind of look at, if you're looking at the putter, right? So let's say the ball's like right here. The club is going to arc back and the face is going to open. Then there's going to be contact, and then then the face is going to arc to the left and it's going to close, right? So you, in order to literally get the club face to be pointing toward the target, you would need to be kind of manipulating the face, right? So you'd be coming in and you'd have to be kind of like opening your wrist as you're coming through. I'm exaggerating, but you would have to equalize the putter naturally wanting to go to the left and close the face. So, what you're describing might be a feel, and if that's a feel that's helping you to make more putts, then that's great. But that's not literally what's probably happening then, because more than likely you would probably leave the face open. You'd, more often if you were doing that. So yeah, the face is going to naturally kind of come to the left and it's going to close after you make contact with the ball. All right, we got a few minutes left here. If we have any more questions, oh, I think we got one more. Sorry about that. So Rick G says, with the driver, how can I get a space between the left arm and the right arm when starting the downswing? How can you get a space between? Well, you wouldn't want too much space, right? If you don't want the elbows kind of separating too much, right? So if you go up to the top and you get your elbows separating too much like that, you're going to tend to come over the top. I actually like to see those elbows staying fairly close together, not like this, but keeping this right arm closer to vertical. Because if it gets out like this, again, unless you have a very long swing, which most people don't have, like a John Daly type swing or a Jack Nicklaus, back in the day type swing. Unless you have a swing like that, you just don't have enough time to get that in front. So I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend this position. I would recommend this position at the top. That would be ideal. So I wouldn't recommend trying to get a big space between your arms. So that is a space that I can see through with the left arm higher than the right arm. I assume you're talking at impact, not at the top, right? So you're talking about like here. Is that what you're talking about? I assume. If that's the case, then that comes from staying in your posture. So you'd have to look at if you don't have if you're like this at impact where your right arm is like covering your left arm, that means that you're coming up out of your posture. And like I said earlier, typically coming out of the posture for most people is a product of starting down steep. So that'd be the first thing that I would look at is are you coming down steep? Because that's what's going to lead to standing up. Because if I stand up, I have to kind of extend. I have to extend my right arm to get the club to the ball, right? But if I shallow the club out and I'm able to stay in my posture, well, now I've got that left arm over my right arm, like you were talking about, right? So that's more than likely because you're coming down steep. Hard to say without seeing your swing, but that's where I would start is working on the 20-minute shallowing fix course. to see what's going on there. All right. So Dredge 915 says, when chipping, I have a tendency to roll the wrists at impact, causing a closed face at impact. Any drill to keep the club face square at impact? Yes, engage more of your body. Engage your body more, because you're probably using your wrists instead of your body. Right. So I would imagine you're probably doing something that's more like this, right? Instead of turning your chest back and through. So a good drill that you can do is you can take a towel and put it underneath your armpits, right? And really focus on turning that towel in the chest back and through, right? So my chipping motion should look more like this, with very little wrist break. I don't want to have a ton of wrist. I want to focus on turning my chest. Now I can have a little bit, right? I can cock it up a little bit, but I don't want to have a ton, right? There's a couple of reasons for that, for a standard chip. One, if I have a ton, then I'm going to tend to have to unload that, right? Or I'm going to tend to have too much shaft lean, right? I'm going to give too much energy to the ball. And also I'm going to tend to come down more steeply on it. And if I come down more steeply, if my club's working more down into the ground, it's going to tend to want to dig more. I want this club to come in fairly level with the ground when I'm chipping. So that way I can hit the, if you use the proper technique, you can hit the ground 2 inches behind the ball and still hit a great shot. It will make no difference, right? So if we don't break the wrist very much, let the hands be nice and soft, and focus on my chest turning back and through, and putting that towel kind of underneath your armpit. So putting the towel like in front of you. I don't have a towel in here long enough to work on that. Actually, I might have a towel in here. Sorry, I thought I had one handy in my closet there. But basically, if you just take a towel and put it underneath your armpits, kind of across in front of your chest here, right? And then you hold that there, and you focus on turning your chest back and through. Your chipping motion will get a lot better. So that's what I'd recommend doing. You're probably just way too much wrist in your shots. That face, we shouldn't be rolling open. You're probably rolling open that face a little bit, so then you have to roll it closed. So that face should be staying pretty square to your arc. Now it's going to open to the ball because your club's going to arc that way, right? But if you look at my hand, right, when I go this way, my hand is pointing out that way, but I haven't done this, right? It's staying in line with my arm. So that's kind of how the club wants to work in your chipping motion. It should work like that, just like with the putter, right? With the putter, it's going to arc back to the inside. That face is going to be open here, right? If I were to hit a ball at this point in the swing, it would go to the right, right? And then it's going to arc back. So I wouldn't want to go here and then keep the face square, right? I want to go ahead and let that club release and go to the left, right? So if you're doing this through contact, it's probably because you're doing that in the backswing. So go ahead and just be nice and soft with the hands. We can have a little bit, so that way we can release a little bit, but we want to make sure that most of what's bringing that club back is our chest, like our rib cage, kind of turning back, right? That's most of what's providing the power, and that's going to allow you to be much more consistent with it. All right. Sorry for the the issues with today. Hopefully, I can get my computer working. If not, this will be the setup for a little bit. I'll see if I can get my better webcam working with this computer. So, but anyway, thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to y'all next time.